to The Partners Meeting, a weekly recap of Mad Men Season 7, Part 2, right here on the Bushell Review. My name is Ari Herstand, and once again, joined today by Josef. How are you, Josef?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm also here with Sean. How's it going, Sean?
I am doing well, thank you.
And the three of us are celebrating the return of Katie.
Oh.
Hi, Katie. Last week, Don and Roger fought to keep SC and P alive. Peggy opened up to Rizzo after difficulties in children's casting, and Trudy finally learned that the king ordered it. But this week, I see us getting lost on the horizon, as we often do. We just finished watching the episode together. Katie, what were your thoughts
Oh no.
on the episode?
Oh. No. I think Don driving off into something new. I think that's a big deal. And I think it's another unknown that is supposed to be wrapped up in the next 2 episodes. So.
And that's not a lot of time.
No, it's not. And I think there's a lot of ways it could go. So I don't know. I don't really know what to expect. I guess that's mostly too. But I just didn't know. I just didn't know what to expect of the whole thing.
Well, let's unpack the episode a little bit. The whole thing is about the big transition, SC&P moving to McCann. It was sort of an interesting juxtaposition in that the person who seems to want to go to McCann the most, Peggy, can't go to McCann because they don't have her office ready. And the person who McCann wants the most to be there, Don, doesn't even seem to be interested to be there. Meanwhile, Roger is sort of holding on to the past, can't let go of the fact that he's sold his company and no longer will be working for an ad agency that has Sterling in the name. And then Joan too. Joan, I think, was almost the A story of the episode. Her transition and what it was like for her to be a woman in a new environment and to not have any respect of any of the men she's working with, or at least any of the men who don't know her.
I think one thing that I've noticed is they really downplay Ted. Like, where he was more of a key role in the previous seasons, now he's like, shows up once in a while just to remind us, oh yeah, I'm still alive. And I'm still, like, in these meetings. And
you really only had a few lines of dialogue, and then he had that sort of knowing look when Don walked out of the meeting, and Ted was like, yeah, I'm never going to see him again. See ya.
Oh, Don.
Oh, Donnie.
I know, it's like always, like, he makes his leave, and then he comes back and then just hits one out of the park. It's like he comes back at the most crucial time and then home runs it, doesn't it, for Don?
Well, Don's been known to do that,
yeah.
To sort of disappear but then magically show up. It's kind of, it's funny. I recently watched an episode from season 1, and it's funny to watch now because in those early seasons, Don is almost like a superhero. Like, he really can't do anything wrong. He saves every meeting, every presentation, every moment. He just says the right words, the right line, everything.
Sometimes at the very last minute. Like, the client is walking out of the room, and
sure.
he says that, just a minute, and then, lays it out.
But now, Don can't do that anymore. Or we've certainly seen Don lose that ability to do it as frequently.
Right. The freedom to do it. Because I think he could still do it. Because that's one thing, and I won't remember his name, but the slicked hair gentleman at the board meeting, he seemed to try to do what Don usually does, where he talks about Miller and the people, and he was awful at it. He just didn't sell me. You could tell that it was the same thing. It was a pitch, but there was just nothing to it.
I think, and I could be wrong about this, but what I thought was interesting about that scene was that presentation that person was giving seemed totally scripted, because everyone was flipping in their pages the way you would do now in 2015 with like a PowerPoint presentation where, you just click on to the next slide. Obviously that didn't exist back then. But I think for Don, it was more, I don't write these words down beforehand. I have an idea, and then it just sort of happens organically when I deliver it. And he seemed really turned off by the fact that this guy was reading straight from the presentation and everyone was following page for page.
But then the guy was also really into it, like he had any skills. I thought Don was kind of disgusted of like, when he notices they're just reading, it's like, this is not that free-flowing, organic work of art, and so I'm completely disinterested with your nonsense.
I feel like it's deeper than that, though. He's like staring out the window, he sees an airplane go by, and he's like, oh, that means to go. I have to get out of here. just in general, I feel like that's the guy more or less kind of is the Don of the past, where he is like creating a story or character, and like maybe he's just fed up with everything and wants to move out and move on. And it's like, if you notice the scene, like when they go around and kind of the background people, I'm pretty sure that one of the guys was just, instead of turning pages, he was just checking out his lunch. His, was it roast beef?
Oh, yeah, the box lunch. We
Yeah.
have some of the finest box lunches here for everyone.
And one with your name on it. And like, he's like, one of the guys was clearly not in the meeting. He was looking into the box like it was the best thing that he was going to have all day. And like, I think that just shows that like not even the people who've established themselves in McCann don't even care at some points.
Well, let's talk about Don's transition. So initially, we find out he doesn't even know what floor he's supposed to be on, because when he gets on the elevator, Beverly has to say, well, he's on 19. When he shows up on the floor, Meredith is sort of waiting for him to take him, to guide him through the maze of cubicles, because he doesn't really seem to know where to go. I thought a very interesting scene was the scene where you learn that Jim Hobart is back from the Bahamas after delivering, I'm assuming Roger was there too, delivering that speech that was alluded to in previous episodes. And he says to Don, I finally caught you. You were my white whale after 10 years. And Don, it's funny because Don, in that instance, is seen as a possession in a way. When you always get the feeling that Don oftentimes is looking at women like that.
Yeah.
So he kind of, maybe for the first time, he's seen as a prize to be won instead of just a person to be valued.
Well, it's an interesting reference that he brings up. Oh, I caught my white whale when what happens is that person who catches the white whale is pulled under and dies, basically. So, just like, is he just gonna bring down McCann as he goes down or something? But no, that's probably not gonna happen. But it's like an interesting, I always found it kind of weird. Like, why are you bringing up this kind of morbid reference in a lot of ways?
Because he's supposed to be so unique. And then he realizes in the meeting that he's just not. That he's just like everybody else. Or that he's being treated like everybody else. And he doesn't want that.
And he has baggage like everyone else. That's, when later in the episode, when he says, Don just walked out of the meeting, Roger's like, yeah, well, he does that. That's kind of a thing that he does. He just disappears, and we've all kind of gotten used to it because we're a little family. But now you're part of that family, so now you know.
I'm just still not over that guy just looking at his lunch the whole time, because I would do that too. I would totally just look at my lunch.
When can I get into this?
Yeah, when can I start digging in? I just want to eat my lunch, and I don't care. I'll just read it later.
There's also a telling scene too when in the meeting with Jim Hobart and Ferg, Jim Hobart says to Don, we're just looking for you to bring things up a notch around here. And then when he goes to that meeting with Miller, there's an older man who I believe works at McCann, and I think he's talking to Ted, and he goes, let me guess, did he tell you to bring things up a notch a little bit? And Don sort of realizes, oh, he's just saying that to everyone. That meant nothing when he told it to me. That's just his sort of go-to phrase to kind of make people, to inspire people to do a good job.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you said, Joseph, about how the Sterling Cooper people are being schmoozed just like they've been schmoozed. Or they're being schmoozed just like they've schmoozed people like over the years, and just bringing different agencies into their own family agency. It's kind of very similar how they're just, the roles are reversed.
Why does Jim Hobart just want to like conquer different agencies? I mean, that's what seems to be more of the thing, right?
Yeah, that's interesting because for the entire series, Jim Hobart is going after Don Draper like Don Draper is who we see him as, Don Draper. And
there's a mystique about him.
There's a mystique about
other
him.
agencies, I remember earlier, I can't remember when it was, but I remember before the merger with Ted Chaw's company, Ted was like, there was such a mystique about you, but now that we're together and I actually work with you, you're just like a mess. He says it.
But then it seems like Jim Hobart didn't even have time to see what a mess Don was, because he clearly seemed surprised by it. So then it kind of begs the question, what was Jim Hobart after this whole time? Was it just, like Sean said, conquering, getting the unicorn and putting that trophy on his wall. Well, what was the purpose of it if he does treat Don like he does all his creative?
Well, the mystique, I think, around Don is he wins, let's say, all of these Clio awards, but when he goes up to accept them, no one's telling the anecdote about how he got drunk and disappeared for 3 days. No one else knows that. The people who work at Sterling Cooper know that. But no one else does. So to all the other ad agencies, it's like, oh, who is this guy who comes up with all this brilliant work?
But what I'm saying is that right away, Jim says, we're hoping that you'll bump things up around here. And almost in the next scene, we see that guy revealed to Ted Shaw and Don that, he says that to everyone. Mm-hmm. Which, again, Don registers as saying, okay, so I guess I'm not as special. But then that just begs the question, because that's all before Hobart realizes that Don does just abscond places. And so then it's like, well, what was this all for? Was it just the acclamation of a... Did I use that word right? Acclamation of a possession? Acquisition?
What I think the thing with Don is like, where's the love coming from? Like, his daughter doesn't tell him that she is going with her friend, so he shows up, she's not there. Betty is like now beyond, like has moved on fully from him, because I think what I thought was going to happen in that one scene where he shows up was, they're probably going to bang, but they don't, because like...
Well, when he puts the arms on his shoulder, it starts giving what looks to be a central massage.
Yeah.
I mean, we all remember what happened at that cabin.
That camp.
When Bobby went to camp,
yeah.
I mean, it's not like there's the fire might almost be extinguished, but it's still, there are embers there.
It's always an available option.
But the thing is I thought of that, where it's like, they've been divorced. The last time that they were really intimate with each other, they were having sex, which is about as intimate as you can get.
Isn't that what being intimate with each other means? Is there another way to be intimate with each other?
You can have an intimate hug. You can have an intimate handshake.
But if someone gives you a hug, would you describe it as we were being intimate together?
Depends on the hug.
Yeah, well, what's an intimate hug? Describe one very shortly.
If I were to show you,
Yeah, but people are listening, so they can't watch.
Well, first of all, there are many meanings to the word intimate. I mean, you can have an intimate conversation and you're not having sex while you're talking.
Sure.
What? You don't?
But what I'm saying is that, like, the last time that they were... And correct me if I'm wrong, have they shared, in your mind, an intimate moment, like an intimate conversation, since that time that they had sex? I would argue... I don't think so.
I think you're right. I can't think of any moment.
So the whole I thought of when I saw that, it's like how much flame has still got to be there, because there's got to be enough flame. Maybe it was an availability thing of like, you're here, I'm here, our significant others aren't here, no one's gonna know what happens. I mean, like, how much of that is residual?
This is how I interpreted that scene, because Don seemed more so than usual really upset that Sally wasn't there and that he couldn't see Sally. Usually Don would be like, oh, okay, she's gone. Right? Am I right in saying that?
Mm-hmm.
Then he asks really specifically, where are the kids? Or the two sons. Because he wants to see them. And I think the reason he's doing that is because at that point, he'd already walked out of the meeting. And in his mind, he knew he'd be driving to Racine, Wisconsin. And maybe never coming back. Who knows? So I think in his head, he wanted to kind of have a last goodbye. That's why I think he ends on kind of a sweet note with Betty when she says, this is something I always wanted to do. And he goes, knock him dead. Like genuinely, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Because who knows if he'll ever see her again.
Right. I'm just asking, like, how much... I mean, you get that. Every time you visit, even if it's accidentally, an ex, I feel like there's still the flutter. And I guess my question is just, like, do you think that there's any flutter between... Don and Betty?
I think that scene really showed that, though. And then, like, the hand thing. But then she's like...
And she knew how to shut it down.
Yeah, she shut it down.
That's enough. Because she knew what he was up to. Because, I mean, if anyone would know, it would be her or Megan.
Yeah.
They would know what Don's moves are. Because they've been around them God knows how many times.
It starts with a massage. Where it goes from there.
And then they bring in the octopus.
And also, it makes sense because Bert, his vision of Bert says in the car, like, you always like to play the stranger.
Which is such a great line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does. Line. It's true. Bert knows everything.
No, I mean, that's such a great way to describe it, too, because we've talked about this before, that any time more about Don has been revealed, he really pulls away from that. Anytime somebody tries to lock him down, like in the contract. He rejects that, and the word stranger almost perfectly defines what Don likes to be. He likes to be the stranger, not the phantom or anything like that. The stranger. I like that.
I did really enjoy that line. However, I thought that scene, the return of Bert Cooper, added a weird coda to what was already a perfect departure in my mind. I thought Bert went out on top, and you couldn't top that. So when he came back and he had this scene, which was okay. I mean, at first you're excited, like, oh, Bert Cooper's back. But it's like, really? So now that's going to be his last scene? Him
but
talking in a car to like a half-sleeping Don?
That's what I mean. Is it Bert Cooper or a Ghost Cooper who Don imagines?
But before it was a Ghost Cooper too.
Oh, yeah. But Don imagines that one also, probably.
It's a little interesting that this show seemed to feature certain ghosts, because when Peggy first hears Roger playing the organ, it had a little bit of a strange, almost ethereal, otherworld, like ghost, spectral. And then
she said, I'm not scary. Organ music is scary.
Yeah, right. And so that made me wonder when I saw Bert Cooper again. It's like, okay, like you said, he had a pretty awesome grand finale with his
song and dance.
Song and dance.
Best things in life are free.
His Rockettes. So then what's the purpose of bringing him back? I mean, what's the purpose of bringing this ghost back to Don?
I think dead people always speak to Don.
It's true. That's true. His dad, his mother.
So you're saying Don Draper is Hanley Joel Osment?
Or Winona Ryder in Beetlejuice.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
So what do you think the purpose of bringing Bert back is to, let's say, Matthew Weiner? I mean, like...
Well, it was sort of strange because in not too many scenes before, you see Betty reading a book about Freud. Mm-hmm. So then you're left to wonder, is Bert Cooper Don's id? Because he says things to Don that Don seems to know and acknowledge. Mm-hmm. It's like, why are you driving 7 hours to Wisconsin to some woman who doesn't really care about you? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know. Because he really doesn't know.
I really just want to pretend I'm part of Miller and I'm going to give him a fridge full of beer. And then I'm going to pretend I'm in a collection agent.
Which seemed kind of desperate to me.
Yeah.
When he first went to Wisconsin and he came up with that, I thought, that's a little extreme. It's a little desperate that you would drive... I don't think... he said 7 hours, but I'm pretty sure that my friends who have driven from New York from Milwaukee, it's like a good 16 hours.
According to Google Maps, how many hours would it take to drive from McCann's office in New York City,
Manhattan.
622 3rd Avenue, to Racine, Wisconsin?
I would say...
At least in 2015.
In 2015, I would say it's... Racine's halfway between Milwaukee and Chicago, roughly.
Oh, okay.
I would say that it would take between 16 and 18 hours.
16 and 18.
I'm
Sean,
going to say...
you look like you're ready.
Yeah, 16-ish, I was going to say.
Katie, you got to be different.
I know, I'm going to. I have to think. 20?
If you're taking Interstate 80, it would be 13 hours, 52 minutes. The halfway point, so like 7 hours away, approximately around Akron, Ohio.
So it would be about, like, back then, probably 16 hours.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because they're not
so
going
they said
obscenely
7?
fast.
What did they
13.
say? Oh, 13.
Yeah. And Google Maps is, I think, even a little slow.
Do you think Don was influenced by what Diana's ex-husband had to say
About Jesus?
Which was that she's a tornado and she leaves broken bodies behind her? Which is a very graphic description about how someone is in relationships.
But then what does he say right afterwards? But she seems so...
Lost?
So lost.
Yeah. Well, it seems like people from New York specifically have come and done the same thing as Don did. How many people? I don't. It sounded like 20 at least from his reaction.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, what? You think you're the first one to try this little move?
You're number 20 in the
collections agency. Nice try.
Cadillac in a suit like that. Oh,
I feel like it's Don chasing himself. I mean, I thought that that's sort of why he's drawn to Diane, because he is so lost, and so he's intrigued by her. Sort of the same way that I don't know that I necessarily want to say that misery loves company, but in the same way, if someone in your family dies, you might probably prefer to be around someone who's maybe in a similar place rather than someone who's like, today is great, you know?
Who's
Right.
grieving?
So I wonder if, you know, his, I'd say, desperate search for her is a desperate search to answer for himself why he feels so lost. Because I don't think...
Or maybe it's a desperate search to find a companion who's very similar to him.
Right, and that might understand, because what's the one thing that Betty and Megan seemed not to be able to do is understand and meet him on his level of just...
Well, and as we've discussed, I think on previous episodes, is there even a person who can do that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, with only 2 episodes left, the answer is probably no.
I
would say that no one probably can fit that
Do
role.
you think that he keeps going to California, and in California he meets Matthew Weiner playing a character and has a conversation with him?
No, I don't.
Do you think he'll
That
keep
could be cool.
He'll drive and drive and then drive into the ocean, and then his car turns into a boat, and it's a comedy in the end?
That would have to be a huge punchline to change the whole series into a comedy.
Well, how about we save all of the big predictions for the finale for next week, because then we'll only have 1 episode left.
Oh,
For the big predictions.
I just wanted to see Don in a boat car.
That would be pretty nice to see Don in a
Like
boat
one
car.
of those
And then maybe the boat
duck
car
tours.
goes to
Yes.
Japan,
Yeah.
and he goes
After
to
the Second World
Tokyo,
War, they
and
would've
he
had them.
punches Lou Avery in the face.
In the boat car, like just a...
Drive by a boat by punching.
Yeah.
By the way, here's a question. Ed's on the phone. He was like, hey, I need to make a bunch of long-distance phone calls. He's speaking in Japanese.
Oh.
Is he talking to someone at Lou Avery's company? It's very possible.
I don't know.
That,
You
Because-
love that guy.
because that's-
love
you do.
him
You
so
do
much.
love him.
What?
You
But
keep
that's
bringing
that's
him up.
that's the only other Japan connection we've had on the show.
no,
He might have relatives
the war.
over there.
All the war stuff that Roger went through.
He's not old enough for that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like Roger's calling up old buddies that he shot.
We were jumping off the boat, and it was 2 stories tall. All you needed was a push. That was
Who
great
is-
advice.
Who is he talking to in Japan, for crap's sake?
That's what I was trying to speculate about.
Maybe he was just cold calling people and
Maybe-
knew how to speak Japanese.
Look, I need a job and I like the Mets. What can you
Maybe
do?
he's actually been bullshitting Lou Avery the whole time, and by
Lou's gotten there and he realizes that
yeah, it was completely
he has
fake.
nothing.
Yeah.
That'd be a great way to stick it to Lou.
What was that
Full
guy's
on
name?
face.
Why would he want revenge on Lou?
Well, because wasn't he one of the people who found out about Scout's honor, and then Lou gave him a really hard time
That
for
would be
making fun of
oh.
him? That would be a great payback.
Yeah, and prank in general. It's like you went through the effort. Some guy quit his job, thought he had his dreams coming true, and then you crushed him.
Yeah.
There's some meanness to it, but it's also Lou, who we've all grown to hate so much.
I feel
We
like
do. We have grown to hate Lou a lot.
there are certain characters like Lou Avery where you kind of want the Animal House ending where they show a still shot of Lou and his big jowls, and it's like Lou Avery successfully got to Japan. Only to find out that he had been pranked. And the best prank ever pulled off. Lou Avery then raged, and Japanese people took pictures.
And
Ed later became the senator of New York, and
Yeah. He swam back and punched that guy in the face.
killing him.
so we talked a little bit about Don's brief transition to McCann. It was more about his life transition, it seems. Let's talk a little bit about the transition going on between Roger and Peggy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I can think of a Mad Men episode where we see so many substantial Roger and Peggy scenes. It was kind of interesting to see 2 characters who are so key to the show, but have very few scenes together. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of fun to see them in a room together, how they're interacting when Peggy says the line to Roger, "This is the most attention you've given to me in years," or something like that.
They really hit it off. Like, they've never connected before, and he's playing the organ, and she's roller skating around, and like...
What a beautiful scene.
Oh,
That
but
was-
it's
that
like...
was great.
Peggy Olsen as Roller Girl.
But it's like the 2 things about... The 2 differences. Peggy takes herself really seriously, because she has to, and Roger is the opposite. He takes himself, like, not serious, like, most of the time at all, right? He just cracks jokes, doesn't care.
Very
about it.
lighthearted.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to be very serious unless, Caroline screws something up with the mail.
Yeah, something like that. But it also seems like he was just helped Peggy loosen up in general, I think. Which leads her to the coolest scene where she walks in the office, a cigarette, weird octopus, like
The
eating out of-
Octopussy print.
Yeah,
Yeah.
octopus
And
eating. Yeah.
I think unbeknownst to her, because Joan's leaving, she is able to
Ooh.
embody that position more
As like the power person.
as like the sexy woman of the like sexy powerful woman of the agency who like knows a lot of shit.
But she just walked. She just walked in there like such a badass. Just
the slow motion shot walking down the hallway.
Doesn't give a shit that she has like an octopus doing something to a woman that shouldn't be
I'm
happening.
indoors and I have sunglasses on because I'm cool. Like that.
Cigarette.
Or she like knows she has the octopus painting. I mean,
she clearly
if
she didn't want people to see it, she would have had it up against her body.
Yeah.
She's got it out for the world to see.
It kind of reminded me of like that. I don't know. There's the same kind of feeling that I got when I watched like I think a few seasons back where Betty just puts a cigarette in her mouth and starts shooting those pigeons with the BB gun. It's like you can kind of boss me around, but I'm gonna like come up on top and I'm gonna be so cool.
It's sort of amazing that for the entire series, Peggy seems to be going to Don to try to get some sort of advice to help her transform. And she spends one afternoon drinking vermouth with Roger. And it seems like transformation is a success.
I don't think she necessarily transformed because Peggy earlier in the episode, when Ed says, I quit, she says, you could work for me one day. During the conversation with Roger, Roger laments the fact that he's in a building that doesn't have his name on it. She says, I hope to have that problem one day. So she's very aspirational. She's always had those big goals.
She's aspirational, but anytime you're with somebody, for instance, when we saw Mr. Vincent Kartheiser, I remember turning
last week on the Partners Meeting podcast.
I remember turning to you or somebody and saying, "It's so funny. He's just a man. I mean, he's just right there." I think that when you
actually, what you said was, "Let's see if we can chase after him." So
yes, I think that's what it was. I may have tried to piggyback on him and was beaten down. But
his security guys were really big, though. Like, we didn't know that was going to happen.
And in all fairness, they didn't actually hit me. They just tickled me until I couldn't take it anymore. But I just think that it's when you talk to somebody who who is on a pedestal, because let's be honest, Roger's pay grade is much higher than Peggy's and has always been, as is his responsibility. I do think that you do take a certain amount of confidence away from that. So her aspirations are there, but you have to admit that if Roger's like, kid, you got it, you're fine, that would do something. And that's something that I feel like she's always been trying to get from Don. And for some reason, when Don gives it to her, it's never what she seems to need or want.
I would disagree with that because there have been episodes in the past where Don has given her the credit that she's been looking for. It never happens as often as it should, but when it does, she does get that look on her face. That's like, yes, you're the person I want to be validating me. Because I'm the person who looks up to you and wants to be able to do the job that you do. I want to fill your role one day.
But there's also a difference between validation, which you can accept, which to me still gives off the idea of a higher person validating a lower person. And when Roger talks to Peggy, she walks in like she is the real whatever you call people who are that. Like she walks in, like she's the bee's knees. And of course she has to respect Roger, but I think that they'll start to talk on an equal level. You know what I mean? Like when she went to Don, she would get that look and she would receive that, but she'd always go back for more. And I said it in a previous episode where it's like she drinks it up, like she can't get enough. But Roger's like, here's some vermouth, you're gonna be all right. And suddenly she walks in like she's Shaft or a celebrity. I don't know.
She's like, she walks in like she's Elizabeth Moss.
Like she's Elizabeth Moss. Yes, that's what she walked in as.
What did you think about the difference between Peggy on the rise, certainly her first day at McCann, and Roger, who describes his new office, or at least the floor that it's on, as a nursing home? He seems really sad to have to leave SC&P. I mean, he's really the last one to go. He's just staying there, playing an organ in the dark.
Where did that organ even come from?
Yeah.
Like we did see it in the previous episode because a kid was playing on it. Remember during that commercial? And Peggy was like, stop that.
Yeah.
Play with these toys.
They just always had that organ lying around just for this one episode.
along with the roller skates.
Yeah, just planted somewhere because I swear I've seen those roller skates just sitting in a random ass corner of the office, like all through whenever they moved into that office, and it's just like, what is that for? A device for something. Oh, it's going to be this thing where Peggy and Roger are going to connect for some reason. And They just had it sit lying around. It's like been planned from day whatever.
Do you think, obviously there's only 2 episodes left, so we won't see his whole storyline, but if you were to go into the future a little bit, do you think Roger's going to have a lot of success at McCann? Or is he just going to be pushed away in a back room and kind of given some cursory accounts here and there, but...
I think he's going to make money. I mean, that's like the big thing is he'll probably make tons of money, but he'll be just bored or...
He won't have the same influence.
Yeah, exactly. He's just
power.
not going to have the power.
But I don't think he ever had that before. I don't think he had influence necessarily. He was like inspirational. I think he's always been inspirational. You can see that with the scene with Peggy, but...
He was a great accounts man.
Yeah, like years ago.
But I also feel like...
What about him at the airport? Remember how there were a couple of scenes where he'd be at the airport and he sort of had a flight attendant. He was kind of in cahoots with her. And he'd do that move where it's like, you keep filling up his glass, just fill up mine with water.
Yeah.
And
he does that all throughout the whole time.
And that's how they got, was it Ford or Chevy? That's how they got that big car account.
But like,
I still think that was years ago.
I think
it probably was like 1968 in that world 2 or 3 years ago.
It's like part of it though is like he when he inhabited that role, that filling when Bert left behind after he passed away, he kind of alludes to that when he was like really kind of satisfied like doing that and running things, and now he doesn't get to do that anymore, and all he's going to be is turned back into the wisecracking. And
it's funny too because you mentioned Bert in that scene where Bert, and we've spoken about it earlier, where Bert tells him you need to be a leader. In that moment when he decides to quote unquote be a leader, that's when he makes the decision to sell the company to McCann. So in that moment, him trying to lead is actually what's caused him to lose his autonomy.
Yeah, to lose, like you said, it's the first time that his name's not on the building. And I agree with Katie in that I think that Bert knew this the whole time, that it's like, I'm sorry, Roger, but this was sort of given to you. And he is a great accounts man, but
his dad founded the company.
But his dad founded the company.
He took it over, and
let's be honest,
name.
He probably had a lot of time underneath his dad's tutelage or just watching to get how the game was played. And this is the first time where I like that imagery of the old folks' home, because I think that without that piece, yeah, what is he except someone who just rakes in tons of money? And I don't think that he's necessarily happy with that, because I do think when he's talking to Peggy, I do think that he thought he was doing a good thing for the company, whether or not it was the death-dealing blow that
it turned out to be.
I think it's interesting because it seems like there's a shift in just the fact that Don and Roger's characters are kind of like never progressing. They're just always at a standstill. There's never a way for them to get beyond themselves in order to be better. But like the women, like Joan and Peggy, are constantly doing that. There's a shift. I mean, maybe it was always shifting, but I feel like it's more extreme now. It's more poignant.
Let's talk about the Joan storyline a little bit. That was almost the A story to the episode. Joan seems to be, of any of the characters we saw, struggling with the transition to McCann the most. First, she's teamed up with Dennis, who we've seen before, and he's just a horrible dick. Offering to play golf at Augusta with a guy who's in a wheelchair because he didn't read the notes that Joan had prepared for him.
Right.
Then Joan, trying to find help somewhere, goes to Ferd Donnelly. Ferd Donnelly's like, don't worry, I'll take care of this. And by that I mean, I want to sleep with you. But I'm going to be classy and say I want to get to know you first.
I'm really classy and say, choose a weekend.
Whatever weekend
you get to choose a weekend. That was, yeah. And then the top guy, what's his name?
June Hobart.
Yeah, Hobart. Not even wanting to deal because Joan's not willing to be submissive, and the sad thing is Roger was right. He's like, the best thing you're going to get is to take this deal. You ruffled too many feathers already, and you need to take this and get out. And that's just setting up her departure from the series now. Like, we're seeing those. I mean, the other big departure was whoever Roger's secretary was, telling him that she's moving on to a different job. Shirley's not going to be coming back.
I see what you did.
But she right there. They're just setting up each person to depart. Like Glenn a few episodes back. Sally's probably now gone. I bet we're not going to see Sally for the rest of the season, and because she's at
in two more episodes.
Oh yeah, I think
we'll see Sally one more time.
Although
I was going to say though, what was really interesting about that scene where Joan has the showdown with Jim Hobart, a really interesting directorial decision. I can't remember who directed the episode, but it's almost like an old Western.
Yeah.
She has this standoff with Jim Hobart. Then Jim literally stands up, kind of talks down to her. But when she doesn't give in and she holds her ground, he later sits down and is then on level pegging with her again and says, all right, I guess just get out of my office. I don't know what to do. I thought that was really interesting how that was shot.
Yeah.
Because in previous scenes, we saw first the dentist guy says the line to her, I'm sorry, who said you could get pissed off? Mm-hmm. And then the next guy, Ferg, is like, well, what did you expect? I mean, he's got a wife and kids. He's not going to say, what, his boss is a woman? So it was kind of interesting to see how all of these obstacles are in front of her. And it's like your heart, I mean, it's just a television character, but your heart goes out to that person. And I think that's one thing that I'll really miss about this show is that the way the female characters are written on the show, I think they're very well written.
Oh yeah,
right.
Versus how they are in, let's say, other television shows.
What I think makes it heartbreaking is, and Joan says, she says, this isn't the first time that would happen, that a man would be underneath a woman. Like we are in a different time, and so I think it's heartbreaking to see that. Maybe that's true, but they are still in a time where it doesn't seem that she would butt up against that, and the fact that she's living that path as opposed to the path of the woman, where it's like, yeah, I am your boss now, and you need to get used to it. That's heartbreaking. Where it's like, oh, Joan, you could, but they're not letting you.
And even the other women who work at McCann, you see early in the episode, they're trying to latch on to Joan's accounts because it seems like they're not getting anything. Yeah. So they're like, wow, you're a woman and you're in charge of some accounts? And then, hey, let's introduce each other. Let's introduce ourselves.
Let's go have oysters and have a bitch fest. Like, that was her drink quote. And it was sad. I mean, part of it is like Jim Hobart is just like, I don't want things to get all messed up. So basically, don't challenge me. I have lots of money. I'd rather give my share, like the share of money you're supposed to receive, to a lawyer than you, because like it's a very big, at that point it's just power struggle stuff, and like put in a different situation, he would do that to anybody, and he seems like he's right about to do it to Don and like Roger, maybe even. Well, Roger's probably a little bit more submissive, but
because he says, "Are any of you planning on working here?"
Yeah, you're right.
What sort of company did I just buy?
The only person the two people who seem to be fitting in the most is like Ted, who just kind of integrates in, and Pete, who just like seems happy. He's like, look at this wonderland. Mm-hmm. He's just excited.
Well, and Peggy, granted we haven't seen her work yet,
oh, yeah.
But Peggy seems excited to be moving to McCann.
Well, and moving in, the coolest person ever. Just like,
that was quite the intro.
Yeah, so hopefully she's just set up to this huge thing, but it's sad that now they just set up. I mean, basically they wrote it in how Joan, because she's such like a strong woman, defends herself like what she should do, and not fold, and then that usually ends up. Oh yeah, now it's just a contest of who has more money at the end and who can do who has the power, and it doesn't really come down to anything except that at that point, and it seems like that's what Jim's going to use to leverage.
What did you think of what Roger said to Joan, which is, this isn't about the fight, it's about the money?
Yeah, and that's exactly, I think, why
in her position, does it make sense? I mean, you try to put yourself in that person's position. If you were in that position, would you try to fight and make a stand and make a point, but risk losing $500,000, or would you just accept, well, here's $500,000, or here's half of $500,000 for sure. I'll just take that and be done with you people because you're horrible, because I don't want to have to look at your faces every day.
You've got to think that in any struggle, that's the decision that the person that is being oppressed, being put down, is faced with. I mean, in any struggle, you got to think that it's like, okay, do I look after myself, or do I take the risk of losing everything and stand up with what she said, women marching in the streets, because maybe my effort helps that cause along. And if I do sit back and look after myself, which I don't think anyone would fault you for, it's totally understandable, that cause might die. I mean, that's the struggle.
The movement at large, I wouldn't have put my 2 cents in.
Right, or like the Montgomery bus, where it's like, we need to get to work, but if we boycott that bus, we are putting our livelihoods at risk to make a statement. I mean, I think that's the struggle that anyone goes through.
I think part of it, though, is who would even see that statement? Because his big comment was like, we own half the New York Times. Like, you won't be able...
When he said that, we could get them to put
Mein
Kampf on
yeah.
the front page.
Yeah.
But that's
what
the
an
thing
insane line.
But that's exactly he can control everything. He's saying that he controls everything and he can dominate everything and just make sure you're just nothing, basically. And that's more of just about having the power and money to do it, rather than being able to, like, you know, you can't make a point. And I think part of, like, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too deep into this, but, like, Roger's like, she took her Rolodex, like a picture of her son and her Rolodex out. So I don't think Joan's the type to just be done. She's just going to go somewhere where she can get what she wants. And, like, a bunch of companies, smaller companies, would probably want her specifically because they know about her reputation. And she, you know, frankly has... like, and all the characters seems to have her shit together the most, you know, just like organized, ready to go.
I would say of any of the characters, she seems to be the best manager.
Yeah.
She seems to know how to handle different personalities and conflicting personalities, and knows how to always fix situations like that. More so than anyone else. Maybe Bert Cooper, he was pretty good at that too.
Yeah. But you got to think about, like you said, who's going to see that? I think that's the big risk, is like, aside from Rosa Parks and maybe some other people, how many people really remember the average citizen in Alabama who also made that stand? You know, Rosa Parks is the clear one to point to, but, like, her action might have gone unnoticed, but if she decides to back out of that, what does that do for the movement? Because if she decides to do that and another woman decides to do that, you know, that's how movements don't gain momentum. They just peter out.
Even Rosa Parks is not even like... Rosa Parks was the character they built to support.
She was specifically selected based on her background and her story.
But there was someone else who did that before Rosa Parks.
Sojourner Truth? Or...
was that her name? It was someone else who basically did Rosa Parks' stuff. Like, everything that Rosa Parks, like, was kind of known for, but she did it way before.
Yeah, I think it's Sojourner Truth. She did it in the 30s, where it was something about, like, her kids were taken away from her, and she sued and won in a court for a decision. I'd have to read it up about it.
No, it was the same bus thing. It was like another woman did not give up her seat, but she, I guess, like, it was weird because they used that and then they planted Rosa Parks in a kind of a similar way. If there's like a weird, you look it up. It's like some crazy thing because they needed. The more important aspect is you need a figurehead to rally around,
right?
And that's actually, even though the story might not be completely truthful, it's like it motivated a ton of people. And what's more important? Do you just complete truth of everything, or just getting people to act and, like, do something that's for the better of everyone?
Right.
That leads to something that I wanted to bring up, which I thought would be kind of interesting. Let's talk about race on Mad Men and how race is portrayed. I was thinking about it beforehand. I genuinely really tried to think hard if I could remember all of them. I've counted 8 African-American characters on this show. So this is what I have. You've got Don and Shirley, the sort of recent secretaries that work for SC&P. Seasons 1 through 4, you had Carla, which was Don and Betty's housekeeper. Betty fires her because she allows creepy Glenn to say goodbye to Sally. Seasons 1 through 3, you had Hollis, the elevator operator, whose biggest scenes were probably awkward conversations with Pete Campbell in the elevator, and then that one time that Don bribed him to act like the elevator was shut down so that Roger had to climb all those stairs, and then he got really sick. Remember that one? Season 4, there were 2 I could think of, 2 African-American characters. There was the guy who mugs Roger and Joan on the street, which indirectly leads to the conception of baby Kevin. And then there was Lane's Playboy bunny girlfriend, Tony. In season 6, you had the woman who broke into Don's apartment and convinced Sally and Bobby that she was their Grandma Ida, but because they didn't know anything about their own dad, they actually believed her. And then there's Loretta, who's Betty and Henry's maid. That's really it, and all of those characters let's say with the exception of Don and Shirley, are directly written to be in the background. They're never in the foreground of the action of the episodes. Do you think that Mad Men is a painfully accurate portrayal of what things were like at the time? Or do they go too far and it's sort of a goofy stereotype? I mean, how do you interpret race as it's shown on the show?
I mean, I would say, I would think, and I would probably also ask for a little forgiveness if I am speaking with ignorance, that it seems like, based on the histories that I have heard in school, I obviously was born afterwards, and what I've heard from my parents, my grandparents, I would say that it seems like, or feels like, a painfully historically accurate portrayal of the few African American characters we see. That first episode when he asks the one gentleman, what does he smoke? The first thing his manager does is says, is this man bothering you?
Oh, sure,
like,
right?
No, he's not. I'm just talking.
Okay.
I'm just having a conversation. So to me, and I've actually enjoyed, I don't know if enjoyed is the right word, but it's been interesting, the transition, because I do think that they accurately are portraying the transition of the freedoms that African Americans have had throughout that time period. When they first start out, elevator operators, sandwich dispensers, stuff like that. And, then you see them coming up, even that one big push where it's like, do we have a black person in front as a secretary? And yeah, so, I mean...
One of the few times where the characters are discussing race on the show.
Right.
Because a lot of times it's just sort of happening in the background, and you as a viewer know about it because you've learned about it in high school or college history, but... the characters, there's not a lot of spoken dialogue addressing it directly.
Wait, well, what about when they put that ad in the Times, right? Where they're like, we'll hire colored people now.
Well, I think that's what you're
that was
referring to, right?
the time period, yeah.
Yeah, and that was... Well, I mean, I can't quite remember why they wanted to stick it to somebody, basically why they did it.
Yeah, it was a practical joke making fun of some other advertising company that had thrown balloons on African Americans.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't think anyone would actually take them up on the offer. So when it happened, they were like, "Oh, great! Now we've got to what?"
But then they did it, and then it turned out like Don and Shirley were kind of the best secretaries or best workers in general. Where Don even upgrades to Joan's
old position.
Yeah,
she's sort of the head of the secretaries.
Yeah, which I mean, it's like she does a great job. We'll move her up, and it's kind of. In a weird way, there's like some progression in that, but it's like kind of similar to all like the weird sexism that happens through the whole series, and like how it's kind of almost slap in your face obvious about it. Like, we're gonna really hit you with this. Like, this is how it was, and it was really, really hard for people to work their way up, and really hard for people who aren't white males to succeed. And like a lot of the success seems to be that they do show is like not just white males going up the chain. They sounds like a lot. I mean, the most of those people are just kind of stagnant. Well, it's like the women and the African Americans are kind of moving up through and like making progress in a way, and it is kind of what I think draws me a little bit towards it. It's like, wow, this is like Peggy being probably my favorite character on the show. I think how she's progressed through from the beginning is just like, that's really crazy that she started from this like really meek secretary and now has become this like pretty powerful position. And I hope the show ends with her being on like even more on top than ever before.
What do you think about the decision to have the character that mugs Roger and Joan in season 4 and the character who breaks into Don's home and claims to be the grandmother? In both of those cases, they cast an African-American actor or actress to play them, which stands out even more because there aren't a lot on the show. So it was sort of strange to me, I thought, seeing those two scenes, that two of the very few African-Americans you see on the show are criminals.
In a way, I feel like it's like a lot of African-American literature at the time portrays that. I can't remember. I always mix up Black Boy or Ellis, I think is the Ellison, I think is
Isn't
the
it Invisible Man?
Yeah, I can't remember if it's Invisible Man or Black Boy, but the whole storyline is about a young man who is in a poor situation, and he gets a job as a chauffeur for a white family, and through circumstance, I think he's a little flabbergasted, a little dazzled by the wealth of this family. He winds up accidentally killing the daughter, and then it's this big manhunt, and the whole time as the reader you feel this strange tension in you where it's like it wasn't his fault, like he was trying to do the best that he could, and yes, he did kill somebody, but it was like he was just trying to get through his situation. So to me it sort of read that way, where it's like you have those questions in modern television where it's like, why is the first person to die a black person, or why is this criminal a black person? But in this context, to me, it resonated. Some of those books that I've read where it's like it was just the struggle.
Do you think in 2015, or when Mad Men first premiered, which I think was 2007, maybe 2008,
yeah,
do you think it's more appealing to watch as a television show to a white audience than it is to an African American audience? I would say probably.
So.
Probably. I mean, you can't put yourselves in the mind of everyone, but I would imagine to a lot of African American people, it's hard to identify with this show or get interested
What
in
does
it.
even like AMC, the network, who are they catering to? I don't even, maybe even go beyond like just race itself, but like they're like kind of hitting like college educated, like upper middle class to wealthy people. I think mostly with their like
they're
programming.
not catering to the man that's described in the episode, who is from Wisconsin or Pennsylvania
Right.
or Ohio, who just drinks beer and likes having a dog because it doesn't talk back. They're not catering to that guy.
They cater to this like group of people who are like have all these things and prescribe to AMC and probably watch similar things to what Mad Men's like.
But
certainly,
it's not even just AMC. I've wondered this often, where it's like. The big running joke at the Oscars is like, who are the token black people in the audience? And I've just wondered, it's like, what is the standstill on that? Like, why is it that for the most part, I would say that most of the protagonists in films and TV are white males? Like, I don't know. And so to me, if I when I think about it, it's like if I would not want to watch this show if I was an African American, because I don't think that. I don't know. How do you identify? Maybe you on a human level you can identify with Don's struggles, but like, yeah, I just don't think it's. I don't know.
It's through the lens of Don.
It's through
he's a white,
upper
privileged,
class,
wealthy
privileged male
man. I mean, it's hard to relate to that in general.
Because even as when I talk to women about this show, a lot of women got off the boat with this show. Because of they're like, I can't stand it. It's so hard for me to watch the way that women are treated. And it's almost sad that still, I mean, the show's been going on for how long? They've shown how many years? And it's just tragic the way that Joan's still being treated. Like, I think that would be hard to watch.
I think that's part of like the interest though too. It's painful, but it's like what makes drama good. It's like it's when it hurts a little bit.
For sure, a little bit or a lot of it.
Yeah,
you got to think that like Joan has been putting up with these problems since day one, and we might think, she climbed to a certain level of status with Sterling Cooper, but at what cost? It's not like that came easy to her at all. I mean, she had to sacrifice everything. It's not like
Jaguar guy.
I feel like maybe that's why she could easily give it up, because like give up her whole identity surrounding her job, because I mean she's had that job for how long, and she's built a community there, and it's just like, how can someone let go of that so easily? But I think that's why she's sick of it.
Yeah.
I mean, but like, how did you perceive Joan and Roger at like the beginning of the series? Like when they didn't really dig deep into their like personalities and you didn't really get to know them. I think. To me, they appear to fit that same kind of mold. That it's almost like, since we've gotten to know these characters, we care about them and we care about what happens to them. But if we were to be restart in a way, like we'd almost view them differently. Like we would know.
Definitely. What is it? And it's not just Mad Men, but I think Mad Men's probably the clearest example. What is it about seeing characters having affairs that makes such compelling television? Because that draws in people.
You mean like soap operas, like Days of Our Lives?
Yeah, it's the fantasy, it's the scandal, the intrigue. I mean, it's why people like to gossip.
It's like a power thing, though, too. I mean, you're just like, oh, you're doing this thing that no one gets away with. Are you going to get away with it? Like,
and then you have power dynamics when it's done with a coworker, when it's done with someone who's a secretary or someone who's lesser down on the scale, like what you were just talking about, Roger and Joan. Yeah. I mean, Roger's name is on the building at the beginning of Mad Men. Yeah. So for him to have a relationship with any woman there is inappropriate. But for whatever reason, we as an audience are like, I want this to work out. Like, I love these two together. I mean, maybe I'm just talking about me personally. Like, I always enjoyed Roger and Joan.
But I mean, part of it is like, I think, an affair is like, oh, is it true love that's gonna sprout from this? Is it like actually they're, I think we're all kind of looking for like, oh, is this the best possible person that so-and-so is going to be with? Or am I imagining myself as this person? And is this like going to be the best person that I'm going to be with? You like project yourself into those kind of situations.
And are they going to someone else because they just want a quick fix? Yeah. Or is it because they do see a connection where, no, you were the person I was really supposed to be with?
Yeah. And that's what I feel like, that's like, Don's affairs kind of half felt that all the time. You're like, is he just gonna stick with this next person and like continue on, or for the most part just move on and it's just another like peg in the, I don't know, whatever, notch in the pole or whatever.
Peg in the Peggy?
Peggy.
Notch in the
belt.
That's the phrase. I don't know. Whatever.
I thought it was always notch in the bed stand.
Yeah, notch in the bed stand.
Oh.
Because you just imagine like you're there, you're in the bed, the person leaves, and you're like, okay, where's my knife? I got to carve one in. That's one more.
Notch in the belt. It must be a colloquialism of Milwaukee.
What's that word again?
Come on now. Sean made some delicious mint juleps. And they were pretty potent. pretty potent. Yeah, it's the intrigue of... Because what's the one thing... Okay, there was this one summer after I had been broken up with, and
everyone's in. It's Joseph's story time.
After I'd been broken up with, and this girl that I had dated at the time, this was in high school, she always had these Felicity nights. And I remember after
The show?
The television show.
That's right.
J.J. Abrams?
J.J. Abrams. And I remember watching... So after we had broken up, I was sitting in the summer. I was 15 years old, and I was just wrecked. And I remember it came on the...
Kerry Russell, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it came on the Wii channel. It was like Women's Entertainment or something channel. And that show came on. I remember being like, oh, that's that stupid show that she used to watch with her friends. It's so stupid. And I watched the first episode. I was like, that was so dumb. And by the second episode, I was like, what are you doing with... No, you should be with Ben. Ben's the one you love. So I feel like people love that. They love to be like, no, Don, what are you doing? Megan's so great.
And I think that's the biggest criticism that people deliver to Mad Men that I've never found valid. Which is people go, I don't like that show because... It's just about affairs, and it's just kind of like a well-made soap opera. It's like, no, it's not. Yeah. I mean, there is that aspect to it, but it is not just that. It's not a well-produced, well-acted soap opera, in my mind.
No.
There's a lot of complicated dynamics happening, and it's like... I think maybe people discredit and dumb down soap operas to an extent that I've never really watched a series. There could be a lot of worthy and interesting stuff
All
in
my
that,
children.
Right?
Like sands through the hourglass.
All my children.
Days of Our Lives.
Yeah.
Do you like Days of Your Life? Days of Our
Wow.
Life?
I used to watch it when Marlena was possessed by the devil.
Yes!
And Stefano was around.
That's why my mom hated that one, because she's like, possessed by the devil.
Yeah.
That's
guys, save this for our soap opera podcast that we're recording after this.
You know what I think makes Mad Men more intriguing, especially in the affairs, is that, and again, at least I feel this, that in each affair, it's like Don is searching for an answer to a question. To me, that's what it feels like.
That's why it moves beyond just
affairs.
affairs.
But it doesn't mean it's right.
No. Of course.
It means he's just an idiot. and that he's just looking for the answers in women, and he can't because he's an idiot.
But Katie is so good looking.
He's so good looking.
It doesn't matter.
What I'm saying is that's what separates it from a soap opera, because a soap opera, they know that they have to be on for 35 years, and so they're like, okay, who's this guy going to date now that makes it saucy? But
can this person stay in a pit?
Right, but with
if he grows a mustache, could he play his evil twin?
His evil twin, or does he get amnesia and come back after 20 years? No, but with Mad Men, I think that that's the difference, is that it's not affairs for affairs' sake. But I still wonder, what is Don searching for in all these women, in all these relationships that he goes to? I still don't know.
Well, we're going to find out, because Don, on his way to St. Paul... By the way, if you didn't know, the hitchhiking hippie that Don picks up at the end of the episode is none other than Ari Herstand, an actor and musician who attended the University of Minnesota before moving on to Los Angeles. Sean, I understand you're a really big fan.
Yeah. Ugh. I just remember seeing his stupid face on those posters all over. Ah, man. He's just like what I hate about music, I think.
You're not a fan of the looping.
No, it's like the acoustic crap that I'm not like super hot on. It's like this, like not even like it's not even like folksy. It's like this. I can't even.
So, what would you rather do than listen to his music? Would you rather get a nail shot through your hand? Ooh. Would you rather get stung by a bee? Would you rather get cayenne pepper in your eyeballs?
I mean, like, what? What? What are you... I was going to answer that.
I know. I want you to answer that. I want to see, like, how the loathing. I want a scale of...
Like, I think part of it is just his exposure around that, like, whatever was it, like, 2007, 6-ish, when it was, like, just crazy. I just saw his, like, every, like... stupid ass like telephone pole had like 30 posters of his face, his dumb face.
Which
he probably did himself. Not to get all regional on the podcast though, but he was the guy who played the hippie was a performer in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities area.
And I'm furious that I had to like know that he existed, and then got curious about what his music was, and then found out it sucked, and then like figured out.
Jerry. Ari Slam!
But, I mean, again, all personal opinion. Sorry for any Herstead fans out there. But it's just like, he had like a street team and stupid shit like that.
A what?
A street team. He like, people would go around and hand out like flyers and stuff for him.
Groupies?
Like,
people working for him, but probably not getting paid.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
How do you get one of those?
I don't know. You can play like so generic that people actually like you, and then you're gonna sell yourself no matter what.
Oh man!
He represents everything I hate about kind of music stuff.
Isn't it great that he has like one of the smallest parts in this whole series?
Well, I wouldn't even known until like Aaron brought it up, and I'm like, fat motherfucker. Like, that's basically what I meant.
Yeah.
Tell you what, we should have a Twitter battle. We should call him out from the partners meeting Twitter account and say, "Shots fired, Ari."
Yeah, for
You're on notice. Listen to this. Listen to what we got to say.
You need to hashtag his name. I want him to hear this. I want him to see this. I want him to show up. We'll have a conversation.
Here? Next week?
Yeah, sure.
Ari's gonna like fly back from LA just to like smack me up a little bit. Oh, that's great. I'll have to take some boxing lessons real quick. Sorry, guys.
Roast beef. Yeah. Delicious.
Well, that wraps up this week's episode of the Partners Meeting. We'll be back next week to recap the penultimate episode of Mad Men and make our predictions for the big series finale. If you have some predictions of your own, you can email us at thepartnersmeeting@gmail.com or tweet us using the handle @partnersmeeting. You can also listen to previous episodes on our website, jbushell.podbean.com. On behalf of Joseph, Sean, and Katie, I'm Aaron Hartung saying thanks for listening, and as Don Draper might say,
I'm working very diligently on the matter at hand.